Hi, I'm Jessie. I'm a cannabis nurse and the founder of Marijuana Mommy. And you're watching Patients Are the Proof, where we talk about the real health benefits of cannabis. Today, I'm talking with the team from Weediatrics, a covert medical mission. Weediatrics is a groundbreaking film that follows a group of parents who risk jail time and custody of their children to obtain life-saving medical cannabis for their kids. The film documents run-ins with the law, political activism, and most importantly, medical potential to highlight the injustice of federal marijuana prohibition. I'm speaking with producer Erin O'Hearn. I'm also joined by two parents who are featured in the documentary, Mark and Christy Zartler. Mark is a husband, father of autism, software engineer, medical marijuana activist, and practitioner. His 20-year-old daughter, Kara, has profound challenges with self-injurious behavior, autism, and cerebral palsy. In 2011, the Zartlers discovered the benefits of medical marijuana for Kara and began a long journey with many teachers and experiments. In 2017, Mark received national media attention after posting a medical marijuana treatment video involving Kara. It went viral. Today, Mark is president of Texans for Safe Access, a nonprofit medical marijuana advocacy group. Christy Zartler has been a nurse practitioner in Texas for 23 years. She is the mother and caregiver of her 20-year-old daughter, Kara, who has cerebral palsy, severe autism, and seizure disorder. With her severe autism, Kara suffers with uncontrollable self-injurious behavior and aggression toward others. Medications prescribed by doctors have been unsuccessful in treating Kara's autism, so the Zartler family turned to medical cannabis. Witnessing positive changes in Kara's behavior, Christy began advocating for medical marijuana at the Texas Capitol in 2015. In 2017, the Zartlers posted a before and after video medicating their daughter with cannabis using a vaporizer that went viral, bringing awareness of the benefits of cannabis to medical professionals, politicians, and many families in need. In May of 2018, Americans for Safe Access awarded the Zartler family with the Courage Award. Christy and her husband flew to Washington, D.C. to accept the award and took the opportunity to further their advocacy in the nation's capital. In May of 2018, Americans for Safe Access awarded the Zartler family with the Courage Award. Hey guys, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. I truly appreciate it. I watched the trailer for the documentary and it touched me from, as a cannabis patient and as a cannabis nurse, it touched me, deeply in the bottom of my heart. Of course, I was bawling. I can't wait to see the entire documentary. I'd love to hear a little bit from you, Erin, about how you got involved in covering this topic. How was Weediatrics born? What's the story behind that?
Jessie, thanks so much for having us. We're certainly excited about this. It's sort of a story that we didn't pursue, but fell in our laps a little bit. And after we started researching it, we just couldn't help but know and feel that there was a real need to get the message out there that the country is not in a state that's ideal to help people, especially children who need it. So actually a few years ago, I met a woman by the name of Erica Daniels, and she has a son on the spectrum who was really struggling. And she had tried all sorts of different medication without success. And truly she was getting to the point where she had to consider whether putting him in a home or not, because she was a single mom and it was just becoming too much. So a friend of hers suggested that she try cannabis. And she did, and it took a lot of tinkering, and it took a lot of smuggling, to be honest with you, because at the time she's a Pennsylvania resident and it wasn't legal medically in Pennsylvania. But it did improve Leo's condition, and she saw dramatic differences in his behavior, in his ability to communicate with her. He became less of a danger to himself and to Erica and her daughter. And really, she became an advocate, and she had such a network of these parents who really took their child's medical condition and needs in their own hands because no one else was advocating for them, and they really had nowhere to turn. And Erica had connected us, as well as Jason Cranford, to the Zartlers. And we realized that there were not only a lot of parents who were out there fighting the same battle, but a lot of parents who would benefit from knowing that there were parents out there who were struggling with the same issues, and that we need to change how we look at medication, how we look at cannabis, and the sort of power that we give parents and caregivers to make decisions for themselves on how to care for their loved ones. So that's how we really came about the documentary. And, you know, the Zartlers were such a key part of it, because they probably live in one of the worst areas to use cannabis. And I just think that Christy and Mark were so inspirational, not only in how they treated Kara, but how they were willing to come forward and put a lot on the line in order to show the difference that it made in her life and their lives, and really got lawmakers to start paying attention. So that's how we came about the documentary.
So many incredible points that you make. It is, you know, it's very, very scary for parents who are going through it. And just like you said, a lot of parents don't realize there are so many other parents going through the same horrific situation. How many families did you guys follow in the documentary?
Well, there were a few different means. Obviously, the Zartlers were the Zartlers, and there's another family out west who were sort of like the ones we pinpointed because they had sort of the worst case scenarios as far as their legal scenarios. But about 5, and there are some that, you know, we touch on, but 3 major families that we followed that were sort of going through the worst of it, not only with what they were dealing with at home, but sort of the legal issues that they were confronted with because of where they lived, or because they chose cannabis as opposed to another medication. You know, we have a family that, the Selvas, that are in California, which is one of the most progressive states and one of the first states to legalize cannabis recreationally. And they had CPS get involved because they decided to treat their daughter who had seizures with cannabis as opposed to an antipsychotic drug. And we're still unclear, and they're still unclear who reported them to CPS, but reported, and they actually took their little girl away in the middle of the night, and they recorded it on Facebook. So there's lots of stories like that around the country, but, you know, I know that Christy and Mark can tell you firsthand what their experience was and how it was to sort of go public for that first time, and the struggles that they've had with the legal system, and really the stigma attached to it.
The stigma is huge. And I can't imagine, like, you know, Erin pointed out, you guys are in Texas, and it is not a friendly area for cannabis. What was it like for you guys? I mean, how was it? How did you come to the decision to start trying cannabis?
Well, she has been on all of the pharmaceutical antipsychotics, and they don't hurt, they don't help, they make her like a zombie. We've actually been giving her cannabis since 2011 in some form. And in 2014, I ended up telling her pediatrician and her neurologist, and they said, don't stop, it's helping her, we can see it. And that's when the 2015 session down in Austin at our state capitol started. And I was naive, and I thought, I'm gonna head down there, I'm gonna tell my legislatures, we're gonna get that fixed this session. They're gonna see that, you know, and have compassion for my daughter who is severely autistic, and she's affected by cerebral palsy as well. And that didn't happen. And then I learned my state is not interested in cannabis or helping, you know, the severely, you know, disabled patients. So it's just devastating. I've been working on it in some form or some fashion since that session. And our Texas lawmakers only meet every other year. So right now, 2020, we're sitting here just waiting for 2021 to start. And, you know, we're trying to work on educating people, patients, the elderly, the young,
And I think we're
our
making,
physicians.
we've definitely made progress with the people of Texas. And there's just no big culture war about medical marijuana for really sick people, unless you're in the Capitol, and then it still goes on. So that's sort of we're the barbarians at the gate. We're the barbarians of liberalism, basically, which is untrue, but that's how we're characterized. And so that goes back to the stigma and battling those things.
That's horrific. It's horrific to see patients to be unable to access this medication, and to see them, criminally prosecuted is just heartbreaking. And, I feel fortunate. In New Jersey, our program is not good. It's very, very expensive, but at least we have legal access. It's fantastic to hear that your physicians, that your doctors were on board, because that can be a challenge even in legal areas. Have you guys gotten any pushback regarding Kara's care?
Okay.
We have not had any pushback from doctors because Kara is so severe. There's really not much arguing about whether we have choice in the matter, right? And so if Kara were more high functioning, then you can have more issues where if you disagree with the doctors, then it's the doctors and CPS against the parents, and they're just not winnable. It's not a winnable, even in legal states. So the issue about just having doctor disagreements about your plan, and with Kara being so severe, we don't have too much of that because nobody has any really good ideas. Really confident enough in their ideas to challenge what we do on that.
And I, Mark, you and Christy, you bring up such a good point, because I think the irony, as far as the legal aspect is concerned, is that the government or CPS or a judge or the school nurse or a doctor, whomever it may be, really wants to get involved and tell you how to care for your struggling child. But in an instance like Kara's and so many other parents that we've met, okay, fine, we tried something that's proving to help, yet just because the law say that it's a Schedule 1, we're going to punish you and threaten to take your child away. Okay, well then what? Because the state certainly doesn't have the services to take care of Kara or Leo. And I've listened to Mark and Christy and so many other parents, and every day there is no day off, there is no relaxing. It is constant care and constant love and patience. And that's not really something that you're going to find on a government level. So it's kind of ironic that they want to, and this is not everyone, I don't want to generalize, but that there are so many people who think that because you give your child cannabis that you're not a good parent, or you're not doing the right thing medically, when this is really the only thing that has proven to ease not only the pain that these families are going through, but Kara's pain too. And I can't understand someone who would be against that.
You made me think. I'm a pediatric nurse practitioner, and I had my children after I had already been in practice for several years. And so I'm very well aware of all the possibilities of, being a premature infant, having cerebral palsy, having autism, having seizure disorder. And I looked into doing everything for her with therapies, and she had scans, she had physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech pathology, and we did everything that we could before even trying the pharmaceutical medications. In fact, I waited till 2006 when the FDA approved the antipsychotic that we tried that made her a zombie. And so that was at age 6. And then by age 11, we were already taxed out on all of the pharmaceutical medications, and that we were just desperate. And by then, her physicians were giving me their personal home phone numbers, telling me, if you can think of anything else I can do, please call me. Wow. And we've even had home visits from them late on a Sunday night. And we really felt like we tried everything before it was a neighbor who gave us a little tiny brownie that was laced with cannabis, and we sat on that for about a month before we actually tried it in desperation, and it was like a miracle. It was amazing.
Wow.
So that's why about 3 years later I just came clean with all of her physicians. And in hindsight, now I know that just by those physicians knowing what we tried, at that point they were supposed to call CPS, and they chose not to.
Our doctor at UT Southwestern got into a little bit of hot water when we released the video and talked to CPS. CPS called them and said, we've been telling people for years. And that's a little bit of a saving grace, but at the same time, we didn't mean to be throwing people under the bus, and it's sad that, trying to help your child and being honest with your doctor is hurtful to that too. But we did everything we could, and we still do. We still try. It's just a hard situation. Finding things that work is rare. So when medical marijuana worked, so we keep doing that.
Well, we still have to break the law to give her the medicines that we give her now.
That's terrible. And I'm sure access is very, very challenging as well. And, there could be products that help her even more out there, but unfortunately you don't have access. And that is just, it's terrible.
We're limited. Exactly.
And Jesse, living in New Jersey, and the same with Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has a pretty lax medical cannabis program as far as, there are a lot of conditions that patients can qualify, including autism. The issue is that because it is still a Schedule I, parents are breaking the law if they travel to Disney World, if they go from New Jersey to Pennsylvania to visit family, because they can't carry it across state lines. And the other point that, we in Weediatrics that we make is that you're sort of flying blind. And I think the Zartlers can sort of attest to this, but you don't really have a doctor's guidance. So thank God Christy has a medical background, but you're really left to your own devices to figure out what works, what doesn't. And the last thing you want to do is treat your child like a guinea pig. But you're really forced to, because it really is the only option. And you eventually find that ratio, you find what works. But the process is scary, and it shouldn't be, because the end result is really miraculous.
I totally agree. It is challenging. There's a lot of trial and error, even with adults as well. That's probably never going to change. That's the nature of cannabis. You have to try different things. But that guidance is just so imperative to so many people, and you're right. So many doctors aren't even aware of the endocannabinoid system, let alone aware of, all the different cultivars or different products that could help different patients. It's horrific. I can't imagine back in 2011 what it was like. Thank God for that neighbor that brought you that brownie. I mean, talk about changing your life forever.
And he taught us how to make butter. We were
so he was actually making this stuff for a very long time. He showed me basically, and I would make it out in the backyard and be afraid that the smells were going to attract the police. I remember, because of big crock pot butter for hours, and can't do it inside.
It smells, yeah.
And so I just did it outside. And
wow.
We didn't know a whole lot, and we did get better over time. At least younger families have it a little better than we did, in the sense, at that time, CBD wasn't even a thing. That was not discussed. And so it was, just a bag of weed, but it worked. And
we openly share our journey and how we got to where we are now with parents who are desperate. And that video, when it was released, we began to receive a flood of messages from parents from around the world who told us their stories and their desperation. And one of the most common questions was, where'd you get that desktop machine? And where'd you get that mask? And it wasn't, especially
and those are good ones, because those are easy to answer. king of Oman to change his laws.
Right.
That's a harder task.
Dubai, Philippines, England. We have, that's why she has a Facebook page now, Christy Zartler, because that's how parents are contacting us and asking us, for help in desperation.
Yeah.
What was that like? Your decision. I want to talk about your decision about sharing that viral Facebook video. What motivated that decision in you guys? And I'm sure you were afraid. What did that feel like?
Okay, so this whole thing was kind of my wild hair. Christy, I wasn't really called into advocacy in the same way she was, where she got a real, it gave her something back. I never really, but I followed her around and was dutifully good husband. And it just, after a while, it just sunk in that we're not really doing as much as we could because we're not being as open as we are. And I was like, the laws in Texas they just think y'all are crazy people. Show them, Turns out they still think we're crazy people, but it was a good, it was a good idea. I think the idea was right. I had obviously CPS and I thought the sheriff would come, and I figured CPS was my much bigger concern because they could do so much. They have so much power, and but both of my girls were 17
and a half.
And CPS still came, but it was also the calculated factor of Dallas County itself has actually no place for care except the hospital. So they could take her out, but they can't house her anywhere. There's no housing for her like that. So they have to put her in Parkland. And so is that bettering her situation by hospitalizing her instead of having her live at home? It was just that they didn't have a lot to do. Now they still, despite all of that, I ended up getting a child abuse. I got a child abuse on the child abuse registry in Texas.
So he can't run a daycare.
But I'm not really.
That's horrible.
There's a lot of other people where this would be a really huge deal.
Yeah.
Anybody that's a teacher should not go public, should not tell anybody. Anybody, if you're in this, because if you get these dings, I would be fired from those jobs.
Mark and Christy, can you actually use that example that we talked about in the documentary, the friends of yours who the father is a teacher, and who basically he and their son and Kara are living parallel lives, but Kara you can take the risk to give her the medical cannabis, whereas why can't they?
You want me to go on that one?
Sure.
I'll try. We'll take two. So it comes down to the occupations of the parents, essentially, where if I work around children, I really can't get caught marijuana anything because of the illegality of it. It's ruinous on people's career. Our situation is a little different, but this comes up where you have people getting, like administrators and executives at schools that they get caught with a bag of a couple grams of marijuana and lose their job over. And for the parents we know a lot of teachers, and we know teachers with situations just like Kara's, and they can't use the medicine because the risks are too high.
And they have younger children who CPS will come and take away. They'll take away all the children in the family.
And to more, and our situation has changed. With the grandson, our risk calculations had to change in terms of how much publicity we're willing to do. No more viral videos, right? Because we have a 1-year-old at home too, and so they can't take care of, but they would be more willing to take somebody, take the grandchild. So we've actually had to tone it down a lot.
Kara has an identical twin who's pretty typical, normal, and she ended up having a pregnancy at 19. She's 20 now, but both of them live with us, and she's in full-time college.
I was a teen mom. My daughter's amazing. Yes, very young. She's finishing her master's degree right now. Amazing.
Oh, wow. Wow, you are, I like it, yeah.
That's beautiful.
But and it's horrible to see these kids being ripped away from their families when we have very good research from Israel showing cannabis is the clinical trials showing it is effective for kids with autism. So it's absurd and horrific to see people who are scared to.
Well, it is, Jesse, and on the sort of the counterpoint to that is one of the arguments that I don't want to say anti-medical cannabis, but people who are certainly still skeptical of its effectiveness will say, well, there just haven't been enough studies done to see what it does long term. Well, there's two problems with that statement and that argument. One, we can't possibly do the studies we need to because it's still Schedule 1. Mm-hmm. And number two, we do know the effects that all these traditional pharmaceutical drugs have on children and adults, early puberty, vegetable-like behavior.
There's severe side effects.
Yeah. So, but yet we still administer those drugs, and those are FDA regulated. So one of the things that the documentary really dives into is you can't use these excuses anymore because there are too many pharmaceuticals out there that are detrimental. And we leave the argument open of what should be the first line of defense. That should be a personal decision. But I don't think that we can ignore anymore the effectiveness that this has had on conditions that until cannabis have been untouched and unchanged with traditional medication. I think the Zartlers are proof of that.
Absolutely. And I am so grateful for you guys for sharing your experience, for talking about it, for your viral video. I know how scary it is to put yourself out there. Just, as myself as a patient, I can't imagine if my child was a patient. So thank you guys for your work. And Erin, thank you. Thank you for making this documentary. I cannot wait to watch it.
Yeah. Well, we encourage everybody to go to the Weediatrics Facebook page. And I do want to mention that, John Earhart and Kimberly Earhart are the executive producers. They really put their support and their heart into this more than anyone on the production side, and believed in it. And they just did a phenomenal job with the entire documentary and really fostering the relationships with all the families. So go to the Mediatrix Facebook page and we'll tell you where it's airing, and you can learn a lot about it. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for taking the time to talk with me today. I truly appreciate your work and your stories.
Thank you for being interested.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Awareness.
Yes.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
All right.